converted man here. I've got Sheng with me. Yes, mindful living. He
Thank
is an
you.
atheist. Yes, here he is. And he's going to explain the nature of reality. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to talk about your religious upbringing and, if any, and your deconversion story and all that. And so, thank you for your time and energy to do this. And yeah, so we'll get into that. Welcome. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you, the converted man. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me for this interview. I'm honored. This is actually the first time I received an invitation for interview over YouTube. So I consider that a milestone.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's all downhill from here. No, hopefully more people will jump on board and want to snag you up because you have really great content and very insightful, and you know a lot about the Bible, and you're very kind with people in the comments. So you're basically an intelligent, nice version of me.
Okay, yes.
Like,
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes, it is a compliment.
It is a compliment.
Well, I demean myself, make you higher, But so tell us, did you have a religious upbringing, if any, and if you did, what was the religion of your parents or whoever was, in charge, taking care of you growing up?
Yeah. Again, thanks for inviting me to share my story. If you are viewing this video now, you're in for a very serious, nice treat because I have some of the stories that you and your viewers might not have ever heard of because of my background, right? I mean, I wasn't born in a Western context. I was born in Taiwan, so I'm a Taiwanese, born by two Taiwanese parents. And my family, so let's start with my childhood, right? My family wasn't religious. We were definitely not Christian. So I became the first generation Christian in my family. Actually, the first one among the relatives I knew of. So they weren't really religious in the sense like they can say they are Buddhist, but in reality, they are just like followers of folk religion. They would ask, us children to hold incense sticks during occasions of ancestral worship or certain festivals. But that's about it. My family wasn't a serious follower of any formal or organized religion. So that's the demographic of Taiwan. Most people they might say they are Buddhist or Taoists, but they are just doing the folk religion stuff. And the Christianity is actually a minority. It's about 4 to 5% of population. So I have never really engaged or knew any Christian until when I was a teenager. So that's when I was invited to the youth group, to a church, which was a non-denominational. Throughout my adult life, I was in non-denominational church or setting. But anyway, so when I got into the youth group, I started participating. My parents weren't against it. But what really converted me to Christian faith was a book of autobiography I read about a famous Christian in Taiwan. And the point that I felt that was really God was real, right? Was when he shared in his book that his cancer, which was pronounced as terminal, got healed. So that was in 1950s, and he continued to live for another, I think, 30 or 40 years. So it's a miracle. I thought it was a miracle, and I was converted to Jesus. So I I prayed the sinner's prayer, and I said, "Yes, you are real, so I'm going to believe in you." And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
then
From
so
from I
it's
mean
not
that.
even like somebody asked or preached the gospel to me formally and
Yeah.
asked me. No, I was reading and I said, "Oh yeah, okay, this
Yeah.
makes sense. This is real."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is, not typical. I don't. For me, I've never heard that. I'm sure it happens, but yeah, to just convert from a book, that's must have been a really good book.
I don't know. Yeah, it's quite, but because it was like new to me, right? This kind of religious stuff, it was new to me, so I was kind of curious, and that's how
Mm,
I got into it. And once I believed, I was like, if I'm going to believe in it, I'm going to be all in. So
mm,
I attended the church regularly, youth group, and then eventually I started taking up some roles of like leading a Bible study or worship and stuff. I joined the choir and all those things. Um, but my parents weren't really happy, right? Because they thought that if you believe in a Christian, see, this is a mindset of the typical Taiwanese family that if you become a Christian, you cannot engage in ancestral worship. That's kind of like I cannot hold the incense sticks anymore. So they were worried, but
mm,
they but we had a kind of like push, back and forth, and eventually they let me get baptized when I was 17 years old.
mm,
And that's also the year when I decided I'm going to give my life to Jesus and to serve Him with my life and want to go into full-time ministry.
mm,
So I enrolled in a private Christian college in California. So my dad wasn't really happy about that decision, but he agreed to pay for my tuition anyway. Um, so I went. So it was at that time it was San Jose Christian College. They later rebranded into William Jessup University. So William Jessup is the founder's name. It's still there. So I spent 4 years there in an evangelical setting, which was like um, for the first time I was, everyone around me was Christian. And I actually enjoyed those 4 years. The staff and the professors, the teachers, they were very caring. They were very genuine. So it was a great experience, actually, and learning the Bible. So apart from that, education in a private private Christian college wasn't like good for your career, right? It's actually very low value.
mm,
And apart from the fact that they didn't really expose me to a wide range of values and thoughts, like secular thoughts and
mm,
stuff. So I was kind of shielded from those things. But still, it was a nice experience. But the best part is that I experienced miracles there. So
mm,
after the first year, my dad's business wasn't doing very well, so he couldn't support me financially anymore. So he told me to either drop my studies, go back to Taiwan until he, he could he could until he could get his business going again, or I enroll in another college with low tuition fees, um, or on my own, right? So I said, well, I thought that well, it was God who called me to study, to go into ministry, and He called me to this Christian college. So I'm going to stay no matter what. So for the next 3 years, starting from my sophomore year, I lived by faith. I
mm,
worked part time in the kitchen of cafeteria, but it just wasn't nearly enough to pay for the tuition and the room and board of a private college, right? So, but whenever it's time to pay for the tuition or rent, there's always money will just arrive, like in my mailbox in the dormitory or the church adults there. In the church where I was attending when I was studying there, they'll just give me the money to support my education.
mm. because
So
they were aware of your situation.
yes, I shared my needs during the prayer meetings in the church and in the college group, and there's also a prayer group on campus. So they're aware of my situation. And of course, it's people who knew my situation that would, support me financially. So, but I still consider that as, the work, the work of God, right? So
Right,
because
right,
that's how we were told to
right,
think. But looking back, it's like I should have been more appreciative of those people. It's not really God, it's people, right?
right.
A lot of times a person whose illness got healed and say, oh, give thanks to Jesus, but they forget about the doctor who
Right,
actually
exactly.
prescribed.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so after college I went back to Taiwan, and I was very interested in going into missions. So I had a friend who was in mainland China, and he invited me to go over there to teach some Bible classes. That was, in early 2000s. So um, the so the churches in mainland China, they didn't have a lot of resources back then. So whoever was willing to go there and share what they learned, they are very willing and accepting. So I went there almost like a year. So I had like taught Bible classes, and was very involved in the underground Bible school. So here's the thing: in mainland China, there are two kinds of churches. One is the official, like, legal church. It's called Three Self Patriotic Movement. The Three Self are like self supporting, self financing, or self-governing, self-financing, and then self-propagating. So that's Three Self Patriotic Movement. It's legal, but you couldn't preach any message that goes contrary to the communist,
Mm,
propaganda. When there's
mm.
another stream, it's called house church movement. It's illegal. It's operating underground, and I was essentially in the house church movement.
Wow.
Yeah. So if
So were you at risk of going to jail if somebody had found out, or?
I wouldn't be at risk of going to jail. It's people who invited me will be
Yeah.
at risk of jail. I would be deported.
Ah. Oh, okay. But
Yeah,
they could go to jail.
they could go to jail.
Wow.
Yeah, they
Wow.
could be detained. So they were actually taking more risk than I
Yeah.
was.
Right. Right.
Because if they were to detain me, that'll be more like a diplomatic
Yeah.
situation,
Diplomatic
right?
issue. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so they wouldn't do that. They'll just deport you. Actually, this one time I was getting close to get busted by the police.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we were in this apartment, and because there were like 20 people, like 20 students, and there's several staff, and people come in and out, and somebody reported that there's this unusually high traffic of this particular unit. So they reported that to police, so they came and knocked on the door. So
Not
that
allowed
was
to have parties. Like.
Well, the thing is, yeah, it's more like a long-term thing, right? Over several
Yeah.
months, and the people
Right.
are just
Right.
generally suspicious. They'll report anything suspicious to the police. So that's
Mm.
why, and that's that was one of the closest situations where I got myself into with the police, and I wasn't really scared. It's actually one of those moments when your adrenaline actually get pumping, and you're feeling like you're the hero of a story where the adversary tries to get to you because you are so trying to accomplish something so noble, so lofty, and the adversary just take you so seriously that they are trying to destroy you. And it actually makes me feel so much like confident, and I'm an important person, right? That's how I felt back then. But now looking back, I can see that I was narcissistic, right? I mean, you could feel that, you can understand that, because when Christians are persecuted, they usually have a stronger faith as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also, I think that was also my mentality back then. But anyway, so after I have some Bible training there, I also joined an organization, a mission organization, and go to Thailand to do some mission work there as well. So I was in Bangkok and running a college group and occasionally preach at a local church. Um, so religion was legal there, so I wasn't worried about anything. You can do
Yeah.
it publicly, so that's all right.
I,
Uh,
I
Go
kind of
ahead.
want to. I kind of want to say, like, what were they saying that just because they weren't saying what China, the government wants them to say, like they weren't saying anything about anti-government per se, but it's just that they weren't following the letter of the law, so to speak. Like that's why they're underground, or because I'm wondering, like, well, what was it that they could possibly preach that's so bad,
It really depends on people's perspective, because there was you can have an argument over that. If it's just about not saying anything against the government, what's so
Right.
bad about that? But for some Christians, attending or participating in the three self patriotic movement is just like your head is no longer Christ; it's the communist government.
Yeah, because you can only have one master. Right.
Yeah, you can only have one master, and it's funny that one of the contacts in China was actually a deacon in the Three Self Church, and she would allow us to hold Bible class. She would invite me to go there and hold the Bible classes and to train some of the local co-workers there, without the authorities knowing about it.
Sneaky.
Sneaky, right?
You're a Christian spy.
And yeah, so that's fun time. But it was in a more remote places where there's like no running water. I had to go to the river to bathe myself. So
Wow.
it was just not in a city. It was a really rural village. Yeah. But
It
anyway,
sounds like quite an adventure, though. Especially as a young man, you're seeing all these things, doing something kind of like semi illegal. That's got to make you feel, really pumped up.
yes, it's exactly. That's why I say it's something that will get you adrenaline going. And there's sometimes you just lay your head low and in the back of the cart where people will transport you around to go and teach at different settings. Like on Sundays, you have like 3 different places of worship at different times, and they'll just take you to this place, you preach for an hour, and they'll take you to another place, you preach for an hour, and like that. Because at that time, it was 20, 30 years ago, there's very lack of resources. They don't know anything about Christianity. They don't know what to believe. They just have Bible, but they don't understand the Bible. Nobody was there to teach them. So I was there, and they just use that as opportunity to learn as much as they can.
Were you like receiving food and board for your
Oh no,
teaching the Bible,
of course when I was with them, they some of the people would open up their houses so I could stay, and they'll provide food for me. But as for the travel expenses or other expenses, I raised money when I was in Taiwan.
Okay.
So I had enough money to take those mission trips. So when I was in China, it was just me. I wasn't with any organization. It was just me and my contact in the mainland China. But later on, when I joined a mission organization and go to Thailand, then it was like officially under their care. And what's funny is that I still had to raise my own money, right? Going around churches or reaching out to my friends, asking for donations, contributions, and to cover for the expenses of the trip, etc. And until this day, I still don't understand why the mission organization would still take 10% away from the money I raised. It's like,
wow.
I know that administration, it requires money. They have expenses, office expenses, stuff like that. Why can't you just raise your own money for that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that is kind of odd. I knew of one missionary group that had come through one of the churches I went to, and they were funded by that church. So, so some of what the church made went to them, but I'm sure that it wasn't enough to do what they were doing. So they probably had to raise money on their own too, you know. But looking back, but yeah, it depends on how big the church is and all that. So yeah, but this is quite the adventure you're having.
yeah, and so now when I'm talking about the construction and stuff, you would see that many Christians would just comment saying that you were never a real Christian. I mean, you never really knew Jesus Christ. I mean, come on, I was risking my myself
Yeah,
out there.
yeah. I mean, you were putting yourself. You were doing. I mean, you were making. You were raising money to go mission to people. You were doing the Lord's work. I mean, that would, people would be like, if you'd been in the States, people would have been like, oh, look at this guy. They would have paraded you around and be like,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
So so I think part of the reason is because they just couldn't understand why a person who would be so into the faith, experienced God so many times, they could still walk out of faith eventually. Yeah, but I'll get to that later.
Yeah, get to that. We're not there yet. We got to get through all the Christian stuff. So you're in Taiwan now, yeah?
Yeah. So yeah, after doing the mission work in Bangkok, I was actually in Taiwan just for a short while before I left again to go to Regent College in Vancouver for my master's degree, for my Master of Divinity. So that's 3 years over there on training, and that's where I kind of learned that inerrancy wasn't a thing. See, many people before I was in Regent College, I thought that inerrancy was like the biblical inerrancy was like a requirement for all the Christian traditions, but it wasn't. There are other new things I learned there, so I appreciate their like openness to scholarship, etc. Actually, Regent College wouldn't call themselves a seminary; they would call themselves as a Christian graduate school because they are leaning more on the academic side instead of on the ministry side. But it's actually partly because of that training I encountered a lot of struggles when I started become a pastor later on. So after I got my degree, Master of Divinity, I went back to Taiwan. I started pastoring churches, and I was struggling because they wouldn't let me teach the congregation what I think was the correct interpretation. Like they were just expecting you to repeat the teaching they heard in over 30 years ago. So especially the leaders, if it's a new convert, they are willing to to learn anything, right? So it's not a problem for them. But I was constantly in struggle with the leadership, and it's not just that though. It's one thing that you don't talk about what you believe is the correct interpretation or the correct viewpoint. It's another when they expect you to go along and repeat the wrong stuff, right? So what am I supposed to do? I mean, I know that Noah's Ark was not historical. I mean, there's no flood. So I could shut up and say, don't talk about it. But what if a parishioner comes to me and asks me about this passage? What am I supposed to say? Right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was really a real tension. So I wasn't doing very well in doing a pastor. And I mean, there are some people who appreciate my candidness and my, because say, scholarship, and my knowledge about the Bible. But the churches in Taiwan they are generally anti-intellectual, more on the fundamentalist side, or charismatic. In which case they don't even really care about the serious studies in the biblical stuff. The liberal or progressive Christianity wasn't a thing. It still not is. So the closest tradition that's to the liberal side is a denomination called Presbyterian Church in Taiwan, and they don't have an official standing on LGBTQ issue. So it's up to the member churches to decide whether they are against or for. So the general council wouldn't issue then a guidance on that. So that's about it. So I quit pastoring, and eventually I joined a ministry, a parachurch organization called Campus Ministries, Overseas Campus Ministries. It's a Chinese organization, but its headquarters is in Los Angeles. So what I was doing, I was teaching online Bible classes and translating seminary course videos into Chinese, so they can have subtitle with the Chinese, so that people who don't understand English, they can also watch it and understand. It wasn't like today, right? I mean, you upload a YouTube video and the YouTube algorithm can just translate that for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I joined then, and they were happy because they don't have people teach Greek or Hebrew. So I was there, I could do that. I was also involved in translation. There's this, I translated 2 books by N.T. Wright into Chinese. So N.T. Wright, if you don't know, is a New Testament scholar. And he's pretty conservative in one sense, but not liberal. But anyway, so I was also involved in this translation project called New International Dictionary of Old Testament Theology and Exegesis. It's a multi-volume, like Greek or Hebrew dictionary, and I was involved in the translation team, and that was fun. But it was in this time of my life that I started questioning my faith. So,
why was that?
So it was actually a slow and steady process. It started with unanswered questions that are tucked away at the back of my mind, right? I mean, when I was teaching children Sunday school, even when I was in 20s, how do I teach like Noah's Ark, where even children are drowned? When those difficult questions, I'm just, let's not worry about that too much. But those questions accumulated to a point that it was starting to shouting for my attention. And there wasn't actually a moment of like a transition or like one reason or one argument that brought me out of faith. It was the result of multitudes of issues. But I think I can share with you one of the things that actually stick out, which is prayer, right? I realized that prayer is a narcissistic activity. When I was praying for getting, a parking spot or getting praying God to help me to deliver this sermon I'm preaching this Sunday. But at the same time, there are millions of people suffering in the world, and many of them are also calling out to God. So I start to feel like, why would I think that God would care about my needs when He is not doing that for millions of people who are in more serious trouble, who are in dire needs? Well, I have food to eat, I have a shelter, but a lot of people don't have that luxury. So I started seeing that prayer is an narcissistic activity. And a lot of people, and that's when I started to looking back at my experiences when I was in college, where people would contribute money for my education. And I thought that was a result of my prayer. I got answered my prayers. But how, in the core of my mind, it doesn't follow, right? I mean, some entity out there helped me my personal needs. It could be anything. It could be a genie, it could be a ghost, it could be my ancestor. There's all sorts of possibilities out there. Why does it have to be an all-knowing, all-powerful, the creator of the universe?
Yeah, and it also helps that you told people that you need money. You know,
Exactly.
if you hadn't told anyone, that might, now we can, say something, maybe, but if people know, then yeah, I mean, they might donate anonymously or what have you, or pay the tuition, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, here's oh no, it's already been paid. You're like, what, so yeah, I mean, it's so easy to chalk up coincidence to a higher power. It's like I just happen to pray for this thing, and it just happens that something comes about or whatever. Because random stuff happens. So you can imagine you're struggling to pay money, and you pray for money, and all of a sudden a $20 bill flies through the air, and it's like, well, there you go.
Right. So yeah, that's how I got over those experiences. Those experiences in college, I could have used I shared those a lot, and people were so moved, right? Oh, God is so real, God loves you, etc. But now, yeah, not it really doesn't have to be a supernatural thing. I mean, even if really it's something supernatural, who is to say what kind of entities that's helping? It could be a guardian angel. It could be, I don't know. In ancient Chinese culture, there's a lot of different gods. We have a god for house, a god for mountain, a god for river. Who knows
Yeah,
which of those supernatural entities were helping you? You can never tell, right?
yeah. I kind of wanted to ask, when you were Christian starting out, where your parents were concerned, it's interesting that they were worried rather than you being saying, I can't do this because I'm Christian. Like they were saying, oh, did they say you couldn't do this because you're Christian, or was it that you were saying you couldn't do it because you were Christian, or what was the conflict there?
It was mutually because, of course,
Okay.
it's the church that first started out saying that the believers cannot hold incense. It's like worshiping idols. So they kind of get that, and so I didn't have to tell them that I cannot hold incense sticks. They already know that.
I see.
But I was also taught by the church not to hold incense sticks.
Yeah.
So it's both. And it's go ahead.
What do you think attracts people to Christianity normally, or what, from what you saw? Do you have an idea of what what gets people of your region to come to it? Is it just come and check it out, and it's like a social activity, or what is it that's getting people to join? Because these churches are surviving somehow.
Yes. That's one of the things I was going to get into next, right? So I was thinking about Christianity as truth, right? And I found that people are not actually pursuing truth in their Christian faith. So apart from people who were brought up as Christians in a Christian family, most people in Taiwan, they would come to believe in Jesus mostly because of subjective experiences of having prayers answered or being moved by the music, by the choir, or by the architecture of the church, or they were moved by the generosity or love of their Christian friends. it's stuff like that. But I would say that a portion of them it's quite utilitarian, right? I mean, we have a lot of idols. We have this God that is responsible for birth, for productivity. So if you are not having kids, you go and worship this God. And that God is, if you don't have job, you go worship that God. And this God is for like, romantic love and etc. So each God has its own function. It's really anthropocentric. It's all centered around human needs, right? I mean, this God's for your needs, this need and that needs, and etc. So some people who they believe in Christianity also because their prayer worked, and they say, okay, they now believe in this God. Then, so that's somehow that's how. Yeah.
It's certainly easier to keep track of one God than 100 gods or whatever. So there must be some pull there too. I don't have to consult my chart when I want to get help with my whatever. I can just pray to the one thing and I'm done.
Yeah, that's one of the evangelistic lines. Like you don't have to worship multiple gods to keep each one appeased. You can just keep this
right. Yeah.
Creator of the universe happy.
Yeah. And be like, which one do I have to thank this time? Let me see. You're looking at the thing.
Yeah.
But,
so that's generally how people come to know.
So,
of course, there are also people who are more educated, and they also come to church as a way of acquainting themselves with like Western culture. They want to learn what Christianity is about because somehow they have this idea that it's Christianity that made the Western civilization. So they would proactively seek out to understand this faith and see how and why it can have such a huge impact in Western history. So that's how some of the more educated people they come to church.
Yeah. I want to go back a bit because I know we kind of go back and forth, but
yeah, sure.
I find that flows a bit better for whatever reason. That these questions in the back of your head that you had that were unanswered. You had mentioned, like how do I teach children's this flood story? Did you ever come to an answer to that, or was that something you didn't have an answer for it?
When I was a pastor, I started out involved in teaching Sunday school when I was in Bible college and I was in seminary. So we have this curriculum that would kind of avoid the sticking point of those stories anyway. So I actually didn't really have to think a lot about those issues. But like Elisha praying, and there's like 2,000 children being slaughtered by a bear.
Yeah. So you literally the teaching was just to teach you to not teach any of that hard stuff, just to avoid it completely.
Or to try to reframe that,
Okay.
try to minimize the impact. I don't know how I did that, but if one of the children raise their hands and they say, "But how is that justified? I mean, how is that moral? I mean, killing children, right? I mean, that's scary stuff." I would be like, I wouldn't know how to respond.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone does. I mean, it does seem like they were basically telling you in a way to lie to people, and even kind of like, don't teach your interpretation of the Bible, teach what we're used to. And, because religion's all about tradition and repetition. And, but so it's a wonder that they don't progress, and in the West, we're seeing churches die because of that. So what was something useful to stick to what has worked, now it's like they have to change or they die out because people are tired of the music. They don't, it's not interesting. They want the doer, they want a reason to go. And, so I wonder if that's going to happen in your country, that, they'll get tired of the same old, or, I don't know. It's hard to say.
The churches that are growing more in Taiwan is more the charismatic. Young people
Mm,
going to have, they can. There's a lot of adrenaline stuff going on, and
yeah, yeah, it's more
contemporary Christian
fun.
music and more fun, and also it's more like prosperity gospel.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have faith, then God is going to bless your studies and your career and your family, and that's somehow was attractive to people. So that's the sector of the Christianity that grows the fastest in
Hmm.
Taiwan. And as you can imagine, I was pretty conservative, and so I wasn't charismatic. So I was actually highly critical of that kind of movement. So I was doing a lot of internal critique even when I was a pastor, and a lot of people don't like me doing that. Like there was this one time a senior pastor found out that I was engaged in internal critique online, and she scolded me for it. Why? What, it's like I was trying to dismantle Christianity from within. I was like,
Mm,
but if I don't do internal critique, how are we ever going to see our blind spots, right? I mean, that's what I was
mm.
thinking. It wasn't appreciated.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you get that idea with, and so did you actually get a degree, official pastor? Um, I don't know what
No,
divinity or
I have my degree in
yeah,
master degree, but I wasn't ordained.
ordained. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
trying to think of.
yeah, I wasn't. If after after ordination, you can call yourself a reverend, but I
Mm,
wasn't. So I could just a more generic pastor.
okay, but still, you did that for how long before these questions started getting to you?
As I said, it's a slow process. I would say over several years. So I explored. I know that there are different strands of Christianity, like liberal ones. So I try to explore some of those um, strands on my own time. But I quickly realized that it, it wasn't going to work for me because, like, why would if you don't believe in flood, you don't believe there's a literal Adam and Eve, you don't believe that the Bible is the word of God, and even believe it, and even if you are skeptical about the miracles that Jesus was performing, why are you still believing that Jesus is
Mm,
divine or God Himself? I
mm,
just couldn't understand the reason behind that. So I looked into it, and to my disappointment, a lot of the answers just came down to I was raised this way. I was raised a Christian, so it was
mm,
like a culture for me. It was a community. Do you know CJ Cornthwaite? He was
mm,
a YouTuber. He calls himself Christian, but he also critiques a lot of Christian stuff. And he says that he is still a Christian because he feels he belongs to this community. It's a
mm,
culture that he was raised in. That's part of his identity. But does he believe that Jesus is divine? No, he doesn't. But he
mm,
still believes God. So I just don't know how that works. So that's maybe it will work for them, but not for me because my cultural background wasn't Christian, right? It's more like
mm,
Buddhist, and
mm,
my family wasn't Christian.
mm,
My mom eventually became the Christian after me,
mm,
but the most of my relatives still aren't Christian. So I don't have that baggage.
mm,
And also I I was listening to Marcus Borg. He was also one of the liberal Christian scholars, and he said that the reason why he is still a Christian is because he had those mysterious experiences
mm,
where, for some moments, all his senses will be heightened. Like ecstasy, you can say that,
mhm,
and he felt that those experiences were given to him by God.
mm,
And I was like, what? That's all? I mean, because I have background in psychology.
mm.
And I understand that some of those, your senses can trick you into feeling or seeing things that are not there. I mean, you don't really need a degree in psychology to know that. There are some if you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, and you can see stuff that are not there, hear voices that are not there, and stuff like that. And you can even induce that by ingesting magic mushrooms like psilocybin and LSD and those kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
Christians would say that those having trips, it's not going to be life changing. Or actually, it can be life
It can
changing.
be. It can be. Yeah. Well, I've known Christians that do fasts, so that can also create some uh, psychological effects if you don't eat for a long time, a period of time. And I myself, when I believed I had this kind of sensation that I would be praying and very relaxed and, ask God, okay, can you zap me? And then this like feeling would travel up and down my spine. And I'd be like, oh, that's God zapping me. Oh, it's so great. Uh, but, when it would only, what happened was I was very in a desperate moment of my life, and I was crying and I asked God for that, and it didn't happen. And now I'm a skeptic, and I understand it was me doing this sensation the whole time, and the only way to do it is to be calm. You can't do it when you're not calm. So it was always me, and I just thought it was God. And I think that that's what people do, is they make themselves feel sensations, and then they say it's God. It's just like the people that helped you out in your finances. It's so much easier to say it's God than to thank yourself or thank the other people. And it's really in a way a detriment to humanity that happens, because we should be thanking each other when we help each other, or ourselves when we help ourselves, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. So it was a painful experience of those this
Yeah.
deconstructing
I was
journey,
going to
right?
ask that. Was it difficult because you had believed this for so long?
Yeah, when I was starting to have those doubts and started questioning, it was okay in the beginning because I was trying to look for answers. I wasn't thinking that this Christianity may be something that I will need to walk out of. So it was okay in the beginning, but it got more intense.
Mm,
And all those questions that I was exploring wasn't getting answered. None of those were getting answered. But I found out more holes, right?
mm,
Like more errors in the Bible, or more like inconsistencies or illogical things. Um, and then comes Trump, right? I mean, when you see those those evangelicals, they can argue, they can have like a million kinds of theological views, right? They
mm,
can believe in a free will, or another camp might believe in predestination. One side will believe in water baptism. Another side, you can say, just sprinkle is enough. And it's all sorts of different theological views that they cannot reconcile with one another, and they keep arguing over and over and over. And yet they all line up behind Trump. I mean, that's so fascinating when you think about that. Like 90% or 85%, they were for Trump. So
yeah,
that's
there's some weird psychological thing with the Republican Party and evangelicals had a weird marriage at some point, and so I think that the Republican Party would do themselves a big favor by saying, "Hey, goodbye, we don't need you anymore," and they'd probably be more successful. But I'm kind of apolitical, so I'm like, whatever. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, there is a everybody gets behind. It's like picking teams, or your favorite sports team, or it's like oh, we won. People say we won. And it's like, what do you mean? You didn't play. They played. What are you talking about? So it's kind of like that. You're on the same team, and there's some power in that. Yeah.
So all of those things, they tell me that Christians in general, I mean, not of course not everyone, Christians are not actually pursuing truth. They are actually pursuing other stuff. In Taiwan, it could be more utilitarian stuff like money or whatever, security, peace. For others, it's like deliverance from sin or from guilt, and still for others, it can be having assurance that they're going to heaven after they die. So it's not really about finding out facts, and it's more about thinking, about wishful thinking, about oh, I hope something is real. If you were real, that would be so good. That would be so wonderful. So it must be real. And
you get used to the idea too, and then
it's
really
called faith.
hard. Yeah, right. I mean, when you're talking, it's painful to let the idea go because you're used to it. You've held it in your head so long, and even if it's it could be a good or bad idea, it doesn't matter. If you're used to it, your brain doesn't want to let it go. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, and another painful area is because I was in this full-time ministry. I was earning money by what
your livelihood is on the line.
My livelihood was on it. So if I walk out, how am I supposed to support my family?
Right.
I was married. I had 2 kids, very young. So what am I supposed to do? So it was very painful, but I cannot lie to myself. I vividly remember the last time I was preaching. I wasn't pastor in the church. I told you, right? I walked out of the pastoring church and I involved in parachurch organization, but people would still invite me to preach as a guest speaker on Sunday services. So the last time I preached, I was already like 95% out, right? So I had to prepare a sermon I did not believe in. I had to, on the stage, I had to pray a prayer that to a person, to an entity I no longer think exists. That was miserable, right? So that was the last time I ever preached. So after that, I declined every invitation. I just couldn't do it. So what about my livelihood? That was really, really, really a struggle. If I were single, that would have been fine. But my youngest was like 1 year old. What am I supposed to do?
Did you know about the clergy project? Or
no, I didn't know anything about that. But I think I eventually I found a way out, right? So I applied for another master's degree in applied psychology. So this time in Canada again, in a public university, and I got a full scholarship, so money wasn't a problem. So that's how I came out the other side. So I don't have to worry about having to say or preach something that I didn't believe in. So I came to Newfoundland. I studied in Memorial University. I got my master in applied psychology, and just before I graduated, I was offered a job. So now I work as a data analyst, and it's funny. I struggled a lot when I was in a full-time ministry, not just dealing with people, but also just things weren't going right. But after the conversion, everything was going so smoothly. I mean, everything. So I told you I came to study with a full scholarship. I found a job immediately afterwards. I got promoted in less than a year. I now earn quadrupled amount than when I was in Taiwan. I mean, everything was going as the way I expected. It's like the God of atheism was blessing.
I was going to say the skeptic God is helping you out. Yeah, that's the God that doesn't want us to believe. it will reward all the non-believers because we're not believing. He doesn't want anyone to believe. That's why there's no evidence.
Yeah, but I know that not a lot of people, not everyone is as lucky as I am.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you mentioned a clergy project, right? Some
Right.
pastors are still stuck in their position because they really have no place to go. Like they don't have an opportunity to have to learn another skill set and to earn a living outside of the church community. So I don't blame other people. The reason why is I say that I couldn't preach anymore because I had to be honest. It's not like an indictment of pastors who
No,
already
no, no. Yeah, yeah,
deconverted
yeah.
and they still stay in their
Right,
position.
right. Yeah. But
Right.
you had to be true to yourself. I mean, I think that that's important. Uh, how did you come to YouTube to do what you're doing? What did you fiddle around with YouTube as a believer first, or you mentioned you were doing some stuff online? So, well,
Yeah. So if you go to the description of my YouTube channel, I think there's a place where you can click and you will see all the links. I have my link of my Twitter account, Blue Sky, and also Medium.com. I wrote about 170 blog articles on that site after I deconverted. So most of what I shared, or what I wrote there, was about issues I found in Christianity. Um, so that's how I started trying to communicate what I learned in my deep conversion journey, where what kind of issues I find in Christianity. And one of the reasons was that I still have this remote chance, like, can somebody answer this for me, right? If you
mm,
can answer to my satisfaction, maybe I can go back to the faith, and maybe I wouldn't feel as if I have wasted 20 years of my life.
mm,
But the more I wrote, the more I studied, I mean, the further away, right? I discovered even more damning arguments, damning
mm,
facts that would just push me further away from Christianity. And the reason why I'm sharing this public and transitioning from writing articles to YouTube is because I want other people who are also struggling like me can feel that they are not alone, right? I mean,
mm,
the questions, they might not even know how to frame their discomfort
mm,
in a logical or coherent way. Then and I can spell it out for you. Okay, this is the issue with church or with the Bible, with the doctrine, and that. And you might say, yeah, that's. I think you put words into my mouth. So to help people who are already doubting and questioning, and maybe they can start to have more coherent thoughts in their thinking. But I think more importantly, I want to um, advocate for a kind of mindset which emphasizes reason and critical
mm,
thinking. And I call my channel Mindful Living. It's part of that reason. Um, we know that mindfulness is meditation, right? Meditation, you sit quietly for 5 minutes, 10, an hour. You focus on inward, on what
mhm,
you are feeling. Focus on your sensations, your breathing. Just to be in tune with yourself. That's what meditation is about. And but what I'm advocating is more than that. It's trying to train yourself to be aware of your thinking process in all of your waking hours, not just when you're
mm,
sitting down and meditate. So to ask yourself questions like, do I really believe that's true? Because a lot of times when as a Christian, when I have questions, I was just there's like almost reflex, right?
mhm,
Reflex response, which you were told to have, but it doesn't really make sense. Like I've heard so often that that you see Freud's dilemma, where is God says something is moral. Is it because that thing is moral, or because God says it's moral? And if that thing is moral, that's why God says it's moral, then morality exists outside of God. But if something is moral because God says it's moral, then it's arbitrary, right? And there's no reason just because God says so. So how it's arbitrary? And the reflex response from Christian is that, oh, no. The morality is based on God's nature. As if that answers anything.
Yeah, but its nature is not up to it. Whatever its nature is, that's not under its control. So it's still, it's like
it's still arbitrary, right?
Yeah, it's still arbitrary. It's like, yeah, well, okay. So if God had been a different way, then morality would be a different way. You're still stuck with it,
Exactly. So does God have control over His nature? If not, then it just happens to be that way. Then it's arbitrary.
Yeah, it's not. And also it's not as powerful as it could be, because wouldn't being all powerful mean you could change how you are? I mean, we can change how we are. We can be different people. We can learn new things. So God can't do that. So it's less powerful than I am. It's like,
yeah. So I want to train people to ask themselves questions. I don't I'm not trying to deconvert Christians.
Right. No. Yeah.
I'm promoting a way of thinking so everyone can use, even Christians. Yeah. So if Christians watch my channel and they train their mind to ask tough questions, and in the end they still believe Jesus and they have stronger faith, fine. I mean, I'm fine with that. Yeah. And what I don't want to see is that people come in and watch my videos and so it's actually Christianity is actually false. Okay, I'll leave Christianity, and then they join the cult.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to see that.
That would be bad.
That would be bad because you haven't really actually changed how you think, how you make decisions, how you decide what is true or false. So if you are a Christian and your church is all right, it's not extreme, then I'd rather you stay there and you have some protections. When you cannot really think critically, you still not go astray. But if you leave that environment and you're still credulous, you're still gullible, then who knows what's going to happen to you, right? I don't want that to happen to my viewers.
I mean, critical thinking will help people be better Christians or whatever faith they might be part of. So it's like my thing is like I want people to learn informal logic, because it's like, stop making these bad arguments you guys make.
Exactly.
You can't make a good argument if you don't know the system that makes the argument. So learn the system, and they just don't want to do it. It's so weird. I don't know. But yeah, okay. I got at least one question. I don't know if I'll have some more for you from chat. So if you want to transition into that, we'll do that here. Or was there a little bit more you wanted to say before I do that?
No, it's okay. We can go back and forth a bit if you want.
Okay. Let's see. We got the mighty Filbert said that when he left Christianity, he felt like he left a cult and he needed to be reprogrammed. Was it like that for you?
Absolutely. So I think this also. So after I deconverted my faith, I had to reconstruct my worldview, my philosophy of life from scratch. Right? It wasn't easy, but also it wasn't. Maybe I should rephrase. It wasn't starting from scratch because I knew who I cared. Right? I cared for my family. I cared for intellectual honesty. So I'll start from there. So the first thing I did was to make sure that my family is fed. Right? We have enough income. So that's where my further education and my job comes in. So that is the most important thing to me. And after I take care of that, I start to think, okay, so now how do I construct my moral philosophy? Like, how do I know what is right from wrong? So I started exploring and reading. But I think most important thing is still to stay true to yourself and to keep exploring, keep learning, and not being afraid to be wrong. I think I took the first step out is that I was willing to say that I was wrong for being in Christianity. I mean, for others, they may not need to come to that, but for me, being honest, it means that I need to walk out of Christianity. So, so admitting I was wrong and admitting that there's room for improvement, that's how I kind of start slowly reconstructing my worldview, and I start exploring my hobbies. Okay, I start to, because when you're a Christian, it's like all my mind was clear on how can I serve God? How do I make the best use of my time to further the kingdom of God? I had no time to explore what I actually like or dislike in terms of hobbies and stuff. So I did some of that. So now I'm really much into coffee making and roasting coffee beans. That's one of my hobbies. It's kind of like a ritualistic for me. While I was preparing coffee or roasting coffee, I can just meditate and just see what kind of thoughts emerge in my mind, and to just be in tune with myself. That's why I say mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, it's not just about rational thinking, improving the reason, but also to get to know who I really am, what kind of person I want to be. And if there's something that I see that I don't like, how do I change that? So it's not necessarily following or necessarily learning a particular school of philosophy, Stoicism or whatever. It's more about discovering what you want. I mean, that's my journey. So and that reconstruction of worldview doesn't have to be like overnight. It can
No,
be
yeah.
it can be stretched for years until I die, even. So I'd say be patient with yourself. We should all be patient with ourselves.
Do you think that not understanding basic psychology plays a big factor in how people remain or become Christian? Not. We said, like you mentioned. I don't know which one of us might have mentioned that, but okay.
Definitely. A lot of confirmation bias is going on. Like, prayer, if your prayer isn't answered, you just forget about it. But once your prayer it worked, I mean, it comes to fruition, then you give thanks, then you share it in public space, and you reinforce that in your mind. So that becomes a confirmation bias that God is real. And also the group think is a real thing. When you are not in a church setting, you don't go to church regularly, you can think more coherently or more neutrally, and you can start to have questions, right? So, but if you are constantly in that community, you are in a group think. I mean that, and you just stay in that way. But when you are alone and outside of that community for a while, you start to have those questions pop up that you may have tucked away for a while. They pop up again, and that's how we can know that we may need something. We may have some issues to deal with in terms of our Christian faith. So yes, so if people who haven't believed yet, but they are constantly in the Christian community, then they are more likely to believe just because of groupthink. I mean, so that's a lot of cognitive biases are being manipulated in church. So like fear of missing out,
FOMO.
just in case that God is real, right? Just can't believe in Jesus. That's
just
that
in
whole
case,
thing.
yeah. I share a video with people from time to time that tell me that, which I call the video this called the challenge, and so far nobody has done the challenge yet, but it's a very simple thing. You go outside. This has to be at midnight, in nothing but underwear with hearts on them, of course. And you sing I'm a Little Teapot. You do a little dance, and you have to record this. And you send me the recording, and then you get whatever wish granted. Now, nobody has done that yet. I don't know why, but nobody has sent me a video. I'm like, you can have your wish granted. come on, guys, we're told, and I
I wonder why. I'm
I
going to
wonder
do that
why.
tonight.
Send me the video. Come on. Nobody has. So, the theists, they don't. So far, I've not heard back from anybody I've sent that video to say, why would you not do this? Because maybe, what if it's true? What do you have to lose? It's just a little bit of humiliation. Who cares, Well, because I haven't given you evidence. I haven't given you a reason to think it will work, And so we know that in here, but saying it out loud is really hard for people to do, We know that wishes don't get granted like that. But the Christian kind of believes that if you believed hard enough, you could move a mountain. And it's like, I thought that at one point, and I'm like, why aren't we moving mountains? And but you don't really, you don't really think. I was like, oh, maybe I don't believe enough then,
And that's how they guilt trip Christians, right? For having going through bad times. It must be because you sinned or because you don't have enough faith.
Right, and then that it reinforces the belief. Right, and it's all that. Better watch out. And it's like, no, because if you don't have evidence that that there's that power there, then there's no reason to perform the silly little dance at midnight in your underwear. But eventually somebody will send me that video, and I will post it on my channel, because of course I would. But anything you would like to say to wrap up? Anything like maybe some atheist meditation? I don't know. Somebody said that they thought that you should brew some coffee on your channel, so that might be a interesting kind of like a ASMR, like join me for some meditation as I brew this coffee. So there's an idea for you.
Yeah, once you get into it, so it becomes ritualistic. It calms your mind, especially in an office setting when it gets so busy. Okay, it's time to brew some coffee, and you just take that 3 minutes. 3 minutes there, it's really calming, and it makes your mind settles down, and you can concentrate. But not everyone is into coffee. You don't need to be in a coffee. It just need to be some kind of ritualistic, repetitious things that you find enjoyable. And you can just do it like without thinking, and that can clear your mind. So that's what I would recommend. Coffee is my niche. It doesn't have to be yours.
Oh, well, somebody might enjoy you brewing coffee on your channel. I don't know. Coffee time, I don't know. Hey, you can try it, see what works. But so I'll let you have the final words here.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap up whatever you want to say, promote, and so on.
So for the viewer, I think this is the takeaway I want you to have. Take the risk of thinking for yourself. You don't realize how much wisdom resides within you until you dare to uncover it. Don't be afraid of the answers you find if they are different from what you were taught. Growth often begins with discomfort. The truth is, no pastor, no book, no tradition can do the hard work of thinking for you on your behalf. Only you can. And when you take that step, you'll discover a freedom and clarity that no one can take away from you. And even if your conclusions end up looking different from mine, what matters is that they are yours, honestly reached, honestly owned. And that's what mindful living is all about.
Thank you for your time and energy. Everyone subscribe to Mindful Living. And until next time,
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Don't stay around while I hit the button here, but stick around. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye. Fade away.